Okay, let's go over this week's market update. And so you see here 6.32%. Last week when we did the video, it was 6.33%. Nothing has changed with interest rates. They did the initial drop, and it was actually, when they did the initial drop in interest rates, it went down to about 6.2%. So not much of anything going on with interest rates. Even when they did the drop, when they announced the drop, the Fed interest rate drop, the mortgage market had already anticipated that and built in those factors already into it. So really, there's nothing that changes until we hold below 6% on this. Then there's a change when we get into the fives and we consistently stay in the fives with regards to the interest rates. Then that's a change, but nothing's changed really. So here's the mortgage applications, okay, tracked by points. Now you see this spike here. That was when they had the Fed meeting and they announced the interest rate drop, okay. And you see there was a big spike in applications, and then next week there was more applications come out. But look what's happened since then. So it's just that we had a little bit of like a news event, and then now it's just coming back down to where it's been hovering around for a very long time. And you can see that, we're just coming back into this zone, which is basically, this is low buyer activity is what this is, which we are coming back into. Even though they did the interest rate drop, we're headed right back down. So really that interest rate drop didn't do a whole lot, than did a little spike up, and that was short-lived, and we're headed back into reality here, which is, the reality is that interest rates are like this because, or I'm sorry, buyer activity is low because interest rates are above 6%, and that's what we're seeing. So anytime the interest rates are above 6%, we're basically seeing this level of buyers hang out in the market, and it's been like that for a very long time, and so far nothing is changing. So when we look at that, we can see that even there's nothing. The pending transactions have been between 5,000 and 6,000 for the past 2.5 years, and listings have been between 6,500 and 7,500 for the past 2.5 years, which is supply and demand is what we're looking at here. So the supply has been offset by 25% over the demand for the past 2.5 years, and nothing has changed this at all. None of the recent interest rate drops, nothing has changed this at all in any way, shape, or form. So the market is stagnant. It's been like this for a while. It continues to go down. And so if you think about it, mortgage rates, no change. Applications are going down, and supply and demand, there's not more buyers entering the market because we would see it here in the pending transactions. If there was more mortgage applications, then we would see that show up here in pending transactions because they would buy properties, and we're not seeing that happen at all. Not in the numbers we need to actually stabilize the market and stop the sell-off. That's not happening. So what we are going to continue to have is this. So this is the St. Pete, Tampa, Clearwater, our entire metro area is losing 0.75% per month in housing value. That's what's going on. So until we see these, until we see pending transactions start to go up significantly and balance out with new listings and then surpass new listings, we're going to continue to see this heavy pressure on prices. And that's just not going to change, and there's nothing indicating that is changing anytime soon. So if you are looking at this as a seller, you really have got to be sharp with everything. You got to stay on top of this information on a weekly basis. This kind of information, you need to look at it every single week so you know what's going on, so that you can make decisions quickly. Because if you sit around and your property gets stagnant and it just sits on the market and nothing's happening and you don't really know what's going on, at the same time that you're experiencing that, you're also losing 0.75% per month. And just think about it, if this holds up, and there's no indication that this won't hold up, there's actually indications that this 0.72% is actually going to go higher, and it's going to get closer to 1% per month. But let's just say it stays exactly at 0.72. a year from now, your property would be worth 9% less than what it is. And 9% doesn't sound a lot, but it's $9,000 for every $100,000 that your house is valued at. Okay, so it is a lot of money. The percentage sounds low, but the money factor with that percentage is very high. So you cannot just, if you're selling your house, you cannot just let it sit on the market. You have to make moves. You have to get buyers in there. You have to know what's going on at all times. It's very important in this market. And then, of course, if you're buying a property, you should be able to find houses that are off. They're going to be down from their highest value that they had. So if they sold for $500,000 2 years ago, you're going to see that those properties are priced around 450 now because they're down about 10%. And if you're walking into a house you like, you should definitely be able to easily get things like closing costs, any kind of concessions, repairs done on the property. That should be pretty easy to negotiate for you. So it's still a very strong buyer's market, and it's just nothing's. I know that they talk about interest rates, but we got to see interest rates go down. We got to see mortgage applications go up, and we have to see those mortgage applications transition into pending transactions, and that has to go up as well. So until we see all of that come into fruition, we're not going to see anything. We're not going to see these figures start to change. It's just not realistic to expect that to happen anytime soon. And we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. It's very difficult to predict, but it doesn't look like anything is going to be reduced down any significantly that would make any sort of real abrupt change in the market anytime soon. So this is just the reality that we're living in. If you're selling your property, you got to be sharp as a knife, and get yourself in a situation where you can actually sell the property. So anyways, that's it for this week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.